You know, right. The podcast that uncovers the origin stories of some of the biggest names in sports, media, and entertainment. Nick Durst here, along with the one and only Joe Calabrese. And Joe, everyone knows that your native language is English, but some people might not know is that your second language that you are fluent in is sports betting. And for that fact, I think you're very excited for our guest today, who is one of the better well-known people in the sports betting industry today.
He is currently a host for SuperBook Sports, and not to be confused with Taylor and Mathis, which is a private real estate firm. We have, she likes that. We have Taylor Mathis. Taylor, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing wonderful. We have football back, so I couldn't be happier.
That's for sure. So what were your favorite, or what are your favorite sports teams? What teams did you follow growing up, and what sports did you play?
So I played absolutely no sports. I was a competitive cheerleader my entire life growing up. So I had athletic ability, but I definitely did not play any of the traditional things like softball or basketball growing up. As a girl, my way that I kind of got into sports and who my favorite sports teams are, I grew up a big baseball fan is really how my start and my love for sports began. My grandparents took me to my first Cubs game when I was about 5. I think that my grandpa thought that my cousin Austin, who was the only boy, was going to be the one that was super into it, but it ended up being me. He took me we went to the Cubs game. He taught me how to do a scorecard, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I became super obsessed with the Cubs. So the Cubs are like my first love in life. Baseball is my favorite. The Cubs are always number one, regardless of the fact that we are not going to October this year. We're already out of playoff contention. But I'm a gigantic Cubs fan. Then my dad grew up a very big Cowboys fan because he's from the state of Iowa. They don't have a professional team. He grew up watching Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith. Those guys play. He became a Cowboys fan, and he raised me one. So now I am from Illinois, but I'm a Cowboys fan. Bears will always be second since I'm from the Chicago area. But that's where I stand: football, baseball, basketball. Grew up a Chicago Bulls fan. I live in Arizona now. I have started to develop a huge fandom for the Suns living out here. So I'm a Bulls/Suns fan. I'm kind of all over the place when it comes to my favorite sports teams.
All right. So first of all, I mean the Cowboys. I'm very sorry to hear that. You got to deal with every year. You got to go into the season thinking this is the year we're going to the Super Bowl, and that never happens. So tough being a Cowboys fan. But with your ties to Illinois, you've been to some Cubs games. What's your go-to Chicago deep dish pizza spot?
Ooh, that's a great question. I actually don't love Chicago deep dish
Okay.
as much as some other people do. I like more of thin Chicago style pizza, which is a thing too. My favorite pizza place in Illinois is a small pizza joint called Uncle Milty's. I'm from a really small town in Illinois called Sandwich, literally just like a sandwich that you eat. So I guess I'm accustomed to food by birth. Everybody's always like, "Do you guys have good sandwich shops?" Nobody has capitalized on that idea of creating a sandwich shop in Sandwich, which is wild to me. But I love Uncle Milty's. That's probably my favorite pizza that exists in Illinois. Out here in Arizona, we have so many Chicago transplants that move here. We have Lou Malnati's, we have Rosati's, we have Giordano's, all the classic Chicago deep dish pizzas out here in Arizona. So if I need to get my fix, I've got a place that I can go, which is nice.
There you go. I think maybe in a few years from now, you could open up a sandwich shop in your
Maybe.
hometown, and you could call it at T Math Sandwiches. I think it would be a
Yeah.
big time seller.
I think that would be super fun. I'm just so shocked nobody's done anything with that yet. I mean, you have like one of the greatest names ever, I feel like, in town history in the United States, and nobody's done anything with it. But it's a great little town.
Could be a destination for sandwiches in the future.
Yeah, right?
Absolutely. When did you decide that you wanted to pursue a career potentially in sports?
I think that I would say it was probably my senior year of high school. I grew up doing theater pretty much my whole life. So I was very big into acting. And at a really young age, gosh, I think it was third grade, I got my first lead role and it had a lot of singing in it. And I always liked to act, but I had never sang before. My mom forced me into voice lessons after I had that performance because a bunch of people came up to her and they were like, Taylor's actually a pretty good singer for a third grader. So my mom was like, we're getting you into voice. So I took voice lessons for, 10 years of my life. And I grew up still doing theater and I grew up singing. And I loved being on stage. I loved performing. So for the longest time, I always told my mom, like, I was going to go the musical route. But as I got older, I started to like realize like I'm good, but I'm not that good. Like I was just like, I don't really know if this is something I'm going to. I knew I wanted to go to college. I also loved school and I kept thinking about like, if you want to be a singer, you're not going to college to be a singer. You're moving to LA or New York or Nashville and trying to make it. And I just didn't see myself aligning with that path. My grandpa always talked about how good I was talking in front of people and being on stage. And he's like, you love sports so much, why don't you combine the two and go to college for journalism? And as I got older, I really started to think about that idea more. So pretty much already as a junior and senior in high school, I knew going into college that I was going to go for sports broadcasting. And that is exactly what I did. So it's kind of been my path that I've always wanted to follow for quite a while now.
I got to ask you something, and Nick's going to get a kick out of this because all you Midwestern girls sound the same to me. Well, I dated a girl long distance who's from Michigan, so not that far away, right over the lake, Grand Rapids, right? So right over Lake Michigan. Is it soda or is it pop?
It's pop.
It's pop. There you go. See,
It's
I knew that.
pop.
I knew the answer to that one. Yeah.
Wow. Taylor, you mentioned musicals and stuff. Have you been to a Broadway play? And what are your favorite musicals?
Of course, I've been to tons. That's like one of my favorite things to do. I recently just saw The Lion King out here in Arizona. It was amazing. I would say my absolute favorite though that I've ever seen is gotta be either Wicked. Love Wicked. I've seen it multiple times, and I've also seen Rent multiple times. So those are probably my top two. Probably also for the reason I love the storyline in Wicked probably the most, but I love the music in Rent. So those are my favorite two musicals. I love that question. Like nobody ever asks me that.
Well, listen, we've had some Broadway stars on our podcast. So we had Constantine Maroulis on, who's done a bunch of Broadway. So yeah, we are in New York, so we've been to Broadway plays.
Love that.
Phantom of the Opera's closing. What a shame.
What a shame. After 35 years, it's amazing.
Wow,
isn't it?
that's crazy. Now I'm like, maybe I need to fly out to New York and see it before. I've not seen Phantom of the Opera.
It's unbelievable.
I've never seen it.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to fly out there and go see it before it's closing.
If you're going into a show, what's your go-to pop and snack?
So funny enough, I drink absolutely nothing carbonated. I have hated pop my entire life. I actually can remember the first time I tried it. I was probably like 5, 6, and it was Squirt. I don't know if you guys remember that pop. It's kind of like 7-Up or, any of those types of pops. My mom gave it to me in a can. I was jumping on the trampoline when I was little, and I was so grossed out by the bubbles of it.
Ugh.
Still to this day, I hate pop. I will not drink it. I'm not a big caffeine or carbonation person at all. I'm not a coffee drinker.
H2O is the way to go.
I'm just a water girl. Yeah, I'm like I love water on like a daily basis. I'm drinking water. That's pretty much my go-to.
I absolutely hate sparkling water. I hate carbohydrated water. I hate seltzer. Ugh. Disgusting.
I do too. I'm right there. I am right there with you. I hate all of that kind of stuff. So I'm not a big fan. When it comes to snacks, I'm a big sour candy person. So I love like Sour Patch Kids, Sour Punch straws. I love Warheads. Anything like that. I'm not a big like chocolate girl either, but I do love some sour candy here and there.
Sour Patch Watermelon was the elite candy of choice when I was in school.
I do love the Sour Patch watermelons too. Those are good.
The best. Speaking of schools, you attended the University of Iowa. So how did you keep yourself active on campus? And what types of internships did you do when you were there?
Oh, well, best 4 years of my life. The University of Iowa is extremely underrated. I feel like if you're not from the Midwest, a lot of people are like, what is there to do in Iowa? It's just cornfields. I'm like, no, Iowa City is such a great city. It is so fun. There's so much to do. I immediately, like I said, I went into journalism already, and I actually was pre-admitted into the journalism school. They picked like 50 to 100 students to pre-admit. So I already was in there as a freshman. So I pretty much already started my first internship as a freshman, and I started on the radio side. I co-hosted a show on student radio called Acoustic Artery. It was actually all music related. So that was really fun and kind of a way to start getting myself being more comfortable in front of a mic, in front of a camera, all of that. And then I was part of DITV, Daily Iowan TV, as well while I was in school. I covered basketball, football, gosh, everything, field hockey, bowling, tennis. Like I did it all. I ended up being the men's basketball beat reporter, though, throughout my junior and senior year, though. So that was really cool. I got to travel with the team. I got to cover all the home games, and I was kind of the go-to source at the Daily Iowan for men's basketball. And that was really cool, too, because we were really good in both of those years. So it was fun to be able to follow along with the team. Other than that, I was also in a sorority. So I was vice president of our communications and PR.
What was your sorority? What was your
I was
sorority?
in Tri-Delt, so I was a Tri-Delta.
Do you have like a
I
hand
grew up,
sign or something that you would have to do
yeah,
when you
of course
squat?
we do. The three triangles. There it is.
Oh
I'm
boy.
like, I never was really sure. I actually, when I grew up in high school, like I said, I loved to do theater and I was a competitive cheerleader. I was really shy though in high school. I was very into school. I was pretty, I don't want to use the term nerdy, but I was very nerdy. I was valedictorian. I was really focused on school, and I wasn't super loud and out there, but I was very involved in extracurriculars because I wanted to get good scholarships going to college. So when I got to college, I thought about trying out for cheer. And my mom was like, I feel like you need to like have some fun. You are always like so regimented. So I decided to join a sorority, and it was a great decision because I still am very close with a lot of girls that were in my sorority as well. And
Important question here on sorority. Do you still call your big and your little? Or do they have you call them that?
no, I don't. My big actually lives out here in Arizona as well. So her and I have remained friends after the fact too. I do not call her my big though anymore. I was never really big on like a lot of those little like traditional type of things like that. It was just fun to be able to go somewhere where I knew absolutely nobody going into the University of Iowa. And in a way, it was kind of a built-in way to meet a group of friends. And I loved it. I know a lot of people knock on Greek life, but I had a great 4 years in my sorority. And I also had a lot of other things that I was doing with my major and with broadcasting that helped too. And then in the summers, I had internships at a couple different places in Chicago since I'm originally from Illinois. So that was fun.
Pretty exciting stuff. Now, something that is unique to you that a lot of our guests probably couldn't do is if Joe was drowning, you could save him because you were a lifeguard. So tell us about your lifeguard
I'm like, where did you guys pull that fact from? That is so true. Yeah, so my first ever job that I had was a lifeguard while I was in high school. And most people are like, oh, just a lifeguard at like a small community pool. No, I was a lifeguard at the biggest water park in Illinois. So I actually had like a real jump in the water, save people type of job. I had like 6 saves my first summer, I think.
Wow.
So yeah, it was fun. I actually saved some people from drowning, all that kind of stuff. The wave pool was like the best area. I'm very much a perfectionist. We had 3 tiers of being a lifeguard. It was like a shark, a minnow, and a crab. And if you were a shark, you could work the wave pool. And I am 5'1". I weigh like 100 pounds. I'm not a very big person, but I was like, I am going to be a shark. I am a good swimmer. I'm working the wave pool. I was a shark. When I look back at it, I'm like, why did I do that to myself? I should have just stuck with being a minnow and working the slides. It would have been a lot easier. But I went all out and went for the wave pool. I loved working at the water park. That's like a great summer job for kids in high school. I would recommend it to anybody. You get to be outside the entire time. So
now, did you get to go on the rides?
Oh, yeah. You have to test them every morning.
Nice.
So it was like, you always get to ride the rides. You get to go to the water park for free on your off days. It was really fun. We had people obviously that came from all over because we were in a smaller town in Illinois, but a lot of people from Chicago would come down to the water park to hang out and spend their days at Raging Waves. So, and it still exists. It's still there. It still looks super fun. I haven't been in years, but it's still there.
Super exciting. Just like your first job as a sports reporter and anchor at KHGI, KFXL in Nebraska. How did you land that job? What was the process like for you sending out your reels and stuff?
Woo, I haven't heard about that place in a long time. NTV. It was a process. So I was, like I said, working for the student TV station at Iowa. And as you know, you're nearing graduation, especially in the broadcast field, it's a really tough industry to break into. So you have to decide kind of what your process is going to be. Are you going to go the route of trying to go for an ESPN or Fox and knowing that you're probably going to be a producer or a runner or something like that, and maybe try to work your way up? Or are you going to go the local TV casting route, which is what I did? I sent my reel and my resume. Oh my gosh, my mom and I, it would be hours and hours of sending it out to places, different places. I don't even want to guess how many, probably over 100 at least. And actually, my first offer I had was in Eureka, California. And it was as a sports reporter and anchor, and I was only going to be making $9 an hour living in California. And my mom and dad were like, you are not moving there. You are not doing this. Like, you are going to be miserable. And I would have been 23 hours from home too, knowing absolutely nobody, working my butt off for $9 an hour. My mom's like, you're not doing this. This will be a huge mistake if you do. I really think you will regret this. I was like, what if nobody, I remember crying to her, what if I get hired by nobody? Like, nobody's going to take me. She's like, there's going to be something else, I promise you. And she was right. A couple weeks later, I got the offer in Nebraska, and I was like, a little bit closer to home. I was only making $11 an hour. It was still nothing. But I was like, you know, I got to get my foot in the door somewhere, get more on-air reps underneath my belt, which is what I did. It was a good year and change there, as a lot of learning lessons for sure, working in local television. It was a good learning experience, but I can't say that I didn't love getting out of there when I did, because I was very happy to move on from Nebraska. It was an interesting place, to say the least.
No Iowa though, right?
Not I can't stress enough how much they're both Midwestern states, but they are not alike at all. Where I lived in Nebraska, I was in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, in Kearney. There was not a lot to do. It was pretty boring, and I was working 24/7. So I didn't have a lot of free time anyway. When I was at Iowa, it was obviously a little bit different because I was going to college. So it wasn't as intense, only working all the time. So that probably helped. But I just think also Nebraska just does not have as much to do it as Iowa at all. I even went to Lincoln a bunch, obviously, for work, and I still just was like, the college towns don't compare. Iowa City's just a lot better.
And the school over there is struggling too, not as strong as Iowa, the Hawkeyes.
Right. Oh, I'm like, the Big Ten so far in general, football-wise, we don't look that great this year.
Rutgers is undefeated as of now.
Oh, yeah. Greg Schiano's got that program back on the map.
I'm like, hey, Iowa, what was it? 2 safeties and a field goal week 1. Oh, that was really bad. Then we lose to Iowa State. And last week we looked okay against Nevada, but I'm like, it's Nevada. So I don't really know how much we have to go off of there. This week, I believe we have Rutgers. So we'll see how that goes in our first Big Ten matchup of the year.
So what was it like being a digital sports reporter for Sports Mockery and then Chat Sports?
It was different starting to I felt like I was one of the first people, especially in the realm of kind of going towards that digital side of sports, because social media was starting to blow up so much, especially right after I got out of college. Instagram, Twitter, and now, of course, we have TikTok, and everybody's all about TikTok and all of that. I think over time, now it's become such a bigger thing. Everybody does stuff on social media in the space, and everybody does digital things in the space, along with doing the traditional broadcasting as well. At the time, it was definitely a little bit of a learning curve. You have to almost be even more concise and more shorter when you're talking digitally because people's time span, like attention spans online, are even shorter than when they're watching a TV program. Because a lot of times when they're watching a TV program, they might not just be sitting down at the TV strictly watching it. It's probably on in the background or something along the lines of that. As with digital, I'm like, people are looking at their phones. You got to catch them really fast and be able to hold their attention for a shorter period of time. I loved working for Sports Mockery. It was really fun because I was getting to cover Chicago teams. So that was fun for me because I have a fandom towards them already. Chat Sports was great too. I mostly covered the NFL while I was there. That was very fun, getting to cover, the National Football League. And I love football. I got to travel a lot in between. They're out of Dallas. I was living in Scottsdale. So I pretty much was between the two every single week. I would fly to Dallas one week, then I'd be back in Scottsdale the next week. So it was back and forth. And I really enjoyed it. It was great. It was a good learning experience as well, for sure. I learned a lot and definitely got better at my craft over time too.
Joe was recently in Scottsdale.
I was. I was a
great.
bachelor party weekend, the weekend of the Super Bowl. So we went to the Waste Management Open.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were following around, Spieth around a little bit that day. And I'll tell you one thing, that area over there in Arizona is really, really nice. And this isn't really Nick's thing, but I'm like a dry heat person. So like that 90, 95 degree weather where it's like that dry heat and it's like crisp out, that's all me.
Oh, I agree with you. I love it out here. I've been here for 5 years now, and I wouldn't change it. It's great. It does get very hot at some points in the summertime, but I personally think it's bearable. I also grew up in the freezing cold most of my life, so I'm like, I can deal with the cold. I can deal with the heat for a couple of months in the summer. Scottsdale is great. There's so much to do here. There's great sports teams in Phoenix. So I like living in Scottsdale and being close enough to get to Phoenix when I can. I think I don't know if I would live in Phoenix per se, but I love living in Scottsdale. There's a ton to do. Great food. I'm like, there's great bars if you like to go out. There's sports. There's literally everything. You can hike. We have it all.
So you were a reporter for Playmakers and then a digital marketing director for KEYTLaw. I know. Oh yeah, we're going through the gauntlet of everything that you did. So talk to us about that.
So that was a little bit different. That was when I first moved out here. I didn't get a job in sports immediately. And, Phoenix is a top 15 market. So that would have been a really big jump from me going from Nebraska to that. So I went the route of marketing for a while and I was like, maybe I don't necessarily want to full-time do sports. Maybe I want to try out marketing for a little bit. So I was a marketing director for a law firm out here in Arizona for a bit. It was fun. I loved it. It was way more laid back than any sports job I've ever had. So it was a nice change of pace for a while, but then I quickly learned within about a year that I was like, yeah, I miss sports. So then I started sidelining with Playmakers and covering the Suns, which was amazing. 2 seasons of doing that was so cool, so great. I had so many fun interviews. I got to meet so many great basketball legends. It was really a exciting job to get to work in the NBA as well on kind of the big stage and getting to get a feel for that and touch on that. And then COVID happened and I got laid off and there was no more basketball happening. So my life quickly changed. I was like, what the heck am I going to do? So I started podcasting, which was really like, who didn't, I feel like, during COVID. But I started podcasting and it was sports / dating kind of. It was more like a lifestyle, but we also still mixed a lot of sports into it with my friend Jared. He works over at Pixwise now, actually. And him and I did that podcast for a while. And then as COVID, things started to lift and change. Him and I really started to jump back into full-time, broadcasting and being in the sports realm.
So I've been in a very similar scenario as you, being out of sports, trying to jump back in it, doing the podcast, doing lifestyle stuff. So I definitely relate. But before we continue, I need to let everybody know that PDF Sports Network prides itself on delivering a high-quality, professional-grade broadcast for your sporting event at just a fraction of the price, from single camera live feeds to multi-camera shoots with graphic overlays, professional broadcasters, instant replays, commercial breaks, and more. Meeting your needs with your budget is our mission. For more, go to pdfsportsnet.com. So something that you did in Arizona that was probably a career highlight for you has to be covering your Chicago Cubs in spring training in 2018.
Yes, that was super fun. Loved doing that. I got to cover a little bit of baseball while I've been out here. I covered the Diamondbacks run in 2017 to try to go to the World Series. They were in that wild card. They did not beat the Dodgers, but it was still really fun being able to cover that as well. And then I've covered the Cubs here and there when they have played the Dodgers at spring training. That was a very cool experience for me. I was slightly starstruck, I think, for the first time in my career, getting to meet Joe Maddon and Javi Baez. I remember specifically talking to them, and I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And I texted my papa right afterwards, since he took me to my first Cubs game, and I was like, I just talked to Joe Maddon. This was like the coolest thing ever. So that has definitely been a highlight of my career and something I will never forget.
Absolutely. So now, after this time, everything with COVID, the podcast, you enter the betting world and you get your current job ultimately with sports, SuperBook Sports. So how did that opportunity come about for you?
So betting was interesting. I was not in sports betting at all. I was obviously just more on the realm of being a sports reporter. I got approached during COVID by a smaller betting company called Bet Karma, and they were looking for somebody to do a lot of digital on-air hits, giving out picks. And I was like, I don't know anything about sports betting. I don't know what I'm doing. And they were like, we really want a female. I think you would be great at it. Would you be willing to learn? And I was like, why not? So I really immersed myself in the betting world. I was up for hours every night, just trying to teach myself how this works, where I wanted to find my niche in sports betting, and how I was going to learn to start capping to have my own picks. Because at first, when I was with Bet Karma, a lot of times they would give me we think you should do this, say this, basically. And as time went on, as I was learning, I was like, well, I actually like this. I think I'm going to do it this way. And I really started to realize that props was kind of my area of focus. And I was like, I like looking at the numbers, and I like looking at specific players more than an entire team. So I was with Bet Karma. That went great. Then I was with Awesemo as well, hosting player prop shows, which was super fun. So I was doing both of those at the same time. SuperBook approached me and my agents and offered me a really good exclusive deal to solely be working with them as a reporter and host, which is what I am doing now. And I love it. It is so fun every day. I wake up, I get to make my own picks. I put out all of my own stuff. And then I actually just started with the Fantasy Television Network 2 weeks ago. So I'm with them now through football season as well. I host a betting show twice a week, all football. So it's all NFL. It's about an hour long, and it's on Fantasy Television Network as well as the Gaming Plus network too. So that's where you can check that out and watch it. That has been really fun. And then once a week as well, I am doing a show with The Fan out of New York radio, giving
WFAN.
giving radio picks with Sal Licata. So that has been really fun as well. Yeah, he's awesome. We've only had obviously 2 weeks of football. So we've had last week, week 2, we didn't do as well. Week 1, I hit 72% on the show with him. So we did really well. Week 2 wasn't as good. So I've got to bounce back now for week 3. That's one of my things I'm doing after today. I got to start prepping for week 3 because with him, I do at least 1 to 2 picks for every single game on the slate. So wow. It's a lot. It takes a lot of time to look through what I like and what I'm going to decide that I'm going to pick. So it's been a very fun experience getting into betting because I feel like I'm hitting my stride in my career now in this space. And I'm loving what I'm doing.
Yeah, we had Sal on. He's awesome. I
love him too. He's great.
Once upon a time, Nick interned at the Fan, and we've had a lot of the guys on New York on our podcast.
That's awesome.
So very, very nice. So you have agents. So we ask some of our guests this, depending on who the guest is. So have you feel like you're having representation has helped you? And when did you start that process? Was it early on, or was it something that happened more recently?
I'll give a really transparent answer to this. So my first agent I had was while I was about to leave Nebraska. I knew I was about to leave Nebraska. I started looking for some agents, which honestly, being real, it was way too early in my career. I shouldn't have had an agent yet, but I unfortunately was young and I was susceptible and naive to some of the agents. Agents are scary in broadcasting. You have to be really careful about who you're trusting. Definitely ask mentors, people in the business, if they've heard of certain people, what they think, if they think you're ready for an agent. I definitely was not ready for an agent. I did not need one yet, especially where I was at in local broadcasting. I had an agent. He definitely took advantage of the fact that I was young and just wanted to move up in my career. I was that, and also when I look back at this too, I was paying him every month to be able to stay up on his website. He was pretty much just taking checks from broadcasters and building his thing that way. That's actually how I became very good friends with Jared Smith at Pixwise. It's because we had the same agent. He reached out to me and was like, I got to ask you, is so-and-so done anything for you in your career yet? And I was like, no. And he was like, me either. And we started sharing stories back and forth. And we actually became very close based on the fact that we had a troubled agent that didn't do much for us. I quickly realized with him, I got an offer in, oh my gosh, I'm going to forget the name of this. It's a very small town in Wisconsin, not in Green Bay, but I would have been covering the Packers. And I got an offer. And when I got that offer for that job, and then I got one in Indiana as well, I asked them both, did you get my reel from my agent? And they were like, no, we got it from you emailing it to us. And I was like, okay, he's not doing anything. So I quickly ex-nayed the whole agent thing, stuck with doing my own thing for a while. I was up for a job with Outkick, which is Clay Travis's
Clay
network.
Travis.
There we
There
go.
you go.
I'm dyslexic, changing his name up. And after I had that audition, I didn't get the job, but I was runner up. And their head of content was like, I really think that you should get an agent. I feel like you are going to blow up in the betting space. And I was like, he gave me a couple that he's like, these people I know, I've loved working with. They're trusted. You should talk to them. I signed with an agent at the time. They helped me with my SuperBook deal, and they've helped me with my other deals as well along the way since I have been in the betting space. We recently have now parted ways, and I am a solo girl now by myself again with no agent. I am strictly working with an on-air coach at this point to better my on-air craft, to hopefully get me to the next level is my plan, because my next goal would be a betting analyst on a network. So I'm just trying to get better on air to get myself to that point to be in the conversations for some of those bigger jobs.
What would you say in your life, your career is your right moment? So what we mean by that is a time and place where you wanted to do something, you asked somebody for advice, they said, you know what, Taylor, I don't think you should do that. That's not going to work out for you. And you said, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway. And ultimately you will see why it is that I'm right.
Oh, that's such a great question. I actually would say recently, through what I was deciding what my next move I kind of wanted to do in the industry was going to be. Did I want to stick to solely digital, or do I want to go that route of getting into being a betting analyst? Like I always say, like, people that I look at in the industry as like who I want to be like, who I aspire to be like, and where they're at. Ariel Epstein is like the queen of sports gambling, and I see what she does on MLB Network and NBA TV, and I'm like, that's where I want to be. I want to be able to give my picks and as an analyst on television as well as on digital too. So I think right now I am possibly in that space because I feel like I have a lot of people telling me, well, just stick to the digital route. You're good at that. You're good at building your own brand. You're great at building social media. And I'm like, I know, but I think I can do both. So I think I'm in that spot right now. And I love working with my on-air coach because she firmly believes in me and I feel like is getting me better and better every single day. So I'm like, I'm going to get there and I'm not going to stop at anything to get there. So I like that. I feel like I have somebody that has my back right now on my team and on my side. And I will get to that point. I'm like, my goal would be, I'm like, the spring of 2023, I'm like, hopefully I will be in that spot. So I'm going to make it happen.
Of course you will. Last question from me, Taylor, and this is the fun question. What are your favorite things to bet on?
Oh, easy. Well, I love props. Clearly, I'm a prop girl. Props are my favorite. I would say pitcher props in baseball are my favorite. I love K props, of course, because strikeout props are kind of the easiest to look at when it comes to statistics. I have a very strict regimen for what I look for with K props, outs props, and hits allowed props. So those are probably my three in baseball. My favorite pitcher props are the way to go. When it comes to football, I'm starting to realize I love looking at receptions for running backs this year right now. But I also love passing yards and rushing yards, receiving yards, all the basics when it comes to props. I think anytime touchdown scores are a great prop to play too. They're fun to look at because it's like you have a chance the entire game. It's not that it's going to be over right away and you're done for. There's a chance the entire game that could hit. So you're intrigued the entire football game. So love those. When it comes to basketball, I love assist props. I feel like that's my favorite when it comes to basketball. And I'm not a huge NBA person. I've started to grow into betting NBA more over the last year, I would say. And it mostly was sparked by the fact that I had an extreme hot streak through NBA season. And my following grew probably like 10,000 followers on Twitter during that time. I hit like something crazy, like 89% of my bets for the month. So it was like I was getting all these new followers and everybody listening to me for NBA. So I've grown more into NBA now as time has gone on. I need to get into hockey. I loved hockey while I lived in the Midwest, but since moving out to Arizona, I just haven't paid as much attention to hockey as I should have. And I'm trying to get myself into UFC and NASCAR here and there. I like to look and dive into trying to cap some of those things as well.
Great answers, Taylor. Thank you for doing this with us. We really appreciate it. Nick and I wish you the best of luck moving forward. And you kind of touched on this before, but if there's anything else that you would like to share or promote for yourself that you haven't already mentioned, by all means, go ahead. We appreciate your time. And once again, we wish you the best of luck moving forward.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you for having me. Yeah, you can find me on social media at TMass Sports on everything. And if you want to check out our betting show with FTN, it's next one will be Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, Fantasy Television Network and Gaming Plus Network, as well as if you want to hear me on the fan, that is Friday mornings with Sal. So, and then all my SuperBook stuff is all in the digital spaces. So you can check that out as well.
All right, Taylor, thank you so much for your time. We appreciated it, and we had a great time with this interview. So that's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right. For our very special guest, Taylor Mathis, from my co-host, Joe Calabrese. I'm Nick Durst, and this has been You Know I'm Right.